afternoon. The Philippine Statistics Authority reports that inflation slowed to 0.9% in July, the lowest print in nearly 6 years. In its report on Tuesday, August 5, the PSA says inflation slowed from 1.4% in June to 0.9% in July. The latest readout is also slower than the 4.4% inflation recorded in July 2024. The latest print marks the lowest since October 2019. According to the PSA, softer utility costs and falling food prices tempered overall consumer price gains. Inflation has now stayed below the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas' 2% to 4% target for a fifth straight month. This will bolster expectations that the central bank has more room to cut interest rates further in the coming months. The Philippine Coast Guard says explosions believed to be related to a Chinese rocket launch were heard in the eastern part of Palawan on Monday, August 4. In a statement on Tuesday, August 5, PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, says 5 loud explosions coincided with a scheduled rocket launch from China. He says they verified a visible condensation trail in the sky consistent with rocket exhaust or propulsion. Tariela notes that the explosions aligned with the launch of China's Long March 12 rocket. According to the PCG, China's rocket was launched on Monday between 6:14 p.m. and 6:42 p.m. It was launched from the Hainan International Commercial Launch Center in Wenchang in China's Hainan province. The Philippine Space Agency earlier projected debris from the rocket launch could fall approximately 21 nautical miles away from Puerto Princesa in Palawan and 18 nautical miles away from Tubataha Reef Natural Park. Tariela says no immediate threats to safety or navigation were reported as a result of the launch. President Bongbong Marcos says he already has the names of those responsible for flood control projects that failed to prevent significant flooding in the country. In the third episode of his BBM podcast, Marcos says contractors whose poor work is obvious will be placed on a blacklist. He says this will prevent the corporations from working with the government again. These companies will also be required to explain how they use the funds for the flood control projects. Marcos points out that finding a solution to the problem involves knowing what went wrong and who should be held accountable. The president even addresses his allies who may be implicated in the irregularities. Marcos tells them that he can no longer consider them an ally if they were involved in corruption related to the projects. In his fourth State of the Nation address, Marcos vowed to come after officials and contractors who pocketed funds from flood control projects. The president ordered the Department of Public Works and Highways to identify the flood control projects under his administration that were failures, unfinished, or ghost projects. Heavy rains in recent weeks left several parts of the country submerged, with critics blaming the widespread flooding on substandard infrastructure. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neo Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good afternoon.